Welcome back to episode 11, I believe, of the Ironman Maryland 70.3 training series. Really quick update. Basically, just wanted to go over my last week of training, and then I wanted to go over basically the taper week that's going on right now. It's Wednesday, and we're 4 days out. So the activities, exercise, the daily regimen changes slightly when we go into a taper week, because we obviously want to show up the day of the race with the least amount of fatigue and the most ready we can be mentally and physically. So last week finished up an 11-hour week of training. So in terms of volume and time spent getting after it, that's pretty high for me. But even though I had quite a lot of fatigue, like I'm looking at the data here, I had over 109 for my fatigue that this day on June 1st, which was Sunday. So anyway, long story short, we did almost like a race day simulation again, which I think I've talked about before. I did one on Zwift, but I still hadn't gotten the outside ride in and gotten some confidence on the new TT bike. So I took that bike out on Sunday, and this is after completing the Tour of Italy on Zwift. This is after two runs, 2 swims, and a bunch of other biking. And then I hop on the TT bike, and I pushed 223 watts for my normalized power average. And then right after that, I did like a simulation transition, popped the running shoes on, so a little T2 practice, and then got on the run, and I ran on the canal, which is like out where I live. It's just completely flat. So that was one thing that I really wanted to test, was basically just 2 of the flattest places I could find, because that was going to simulate the course in Cambridge. And I actually dealt with a little bit of wind, and I know a lot of people say that in Eagleman there's, the chance of wind can be pretty high. There's like some pretty intense crosswinds. So I felt like it was really, really good practice, and I knocked it out of the park. Like I ran my 10K at a 6:50 pace, so I ran 6.2 miles at a 6:50 pace post 40-mile ride. And then earlier that week, like I had mentioned, I did a 43-mile ride with my coach. So basically that whole week was obviously very stressful, a really good final week to close out this block of training. I want to make sure that I'm coming into this race very humble and acknowledging the difficulty that comes with Cambridge, given the tidal current, given the heat, the lack of shade, and the unpredictability of that just comes along with triathlon. So I think that it was really good for me to practice my transitions, given the fact that the last time I raced was in September. And on Friday, I'm going to swim with my wetsuit and just do some basic basically just a comfort test and just make sure that everything's still good. And the fueling on Sunday went really well as well. I was nervous because I've been testing out a few different gels. I never used to use caffeine beforehand in my gels and fuel. And then I got onto the caffeine grind, but I feel like I've been kind of overdoing it between coffee and then also fueling with caffeine. I think that 50 to 100 milligrams here and again while you're working out is great. So I still have some gels that will have 25, 50, or 100 milligrams as needed. But I wanted to get a really good gel that fits me well, that just didn't have any caffeine. And I think that I found that in 2. I'm going to test them out a little bit more, and then I will be sure to show you which ones those are. Some are your typical 25 grams of carbs, and then there's some that are like 50 grams of carbs, because I wasn't sure if my stomach could handle more gel with more carbs, because it's nicer to keep gels lighter because they're already a little bit, I feel like they kind of come with some discomfort, just being that it's not really like a solid or anything. Anyway, long story short, very stoked on the fuel. We just gotta stay focused, get our sleep, and then carb load 2 days before. Saturday will be like the bike check-in, all that stuff. And I think there's like a pro panel, and I know that Lionel Sanders, Sam Long, Cam Wharf, there's a couple like pretty big names that I would love to like see and just get a picture with or something, and maybe that'll end up in the final episode 12 of this whole thing. So anyway, stay tuned for episode 12. I'm hoping that, Sunday obviously I'll be racing, so no phone there, but hopefully I'll get some pictures, and I know like Carolina, my family, is going to be there supporting me, so I'm sure they'll grab some good pics whenever they can see me on course. That is that. And then the taper week was the final thing I wanted to talk about. Somehow I haven't gotten to that yet, and we're 8 minutes in. But we've gone from basically like anywhere from 9 to 12 to 13-ish hours of work in a week. And this week we're only doing around probably like 4 hours. So I have 2 runs, 2 swims, 2 bikes. And the one bike was super short. It was a race just to kind of get the legs turning over, just 11 miles. It went really well. I raced in the bracket ahead of me, or above me, and I actually ended up taking 5th. The sprint, I'm finally, after the Tour of Italy on Zwift was 18 days of racing, over 21 days. You got 3 rest days. I was able to make most of those work. Through that process, I got a little bit quicker on the sprints, not just fitness-wise. I feel like a little bit more explosive, obviously, but also just tactically and strategically. And I keep telling myself the tactical strategy part of Zwift, where you're kind of racing other people, and obviously there's drawbacks to Zwift with like people cheating with their weight and all this stuff, but for the most part I do think that it's super beneficial to be racing. I've been asked about that before, is like, how did you get your bike from here to where it is now, right? From like 210 FTP all the way up to like 285 now. And I think a large majority of that is the races, because you're kind of getting a lot of different type of cardio in, and so you're getting a little bit of muscular endurance in the legs, you're getting a little bit of that intensity through sprinting, you're getting a little bit of that threshold work, and you're also, because you can obviously pick workouts, like more triathlon specific workouts that's working your race pace, that's working your threshold, that's more in zone 2 cardio. But the races not only have all of those jammed into one, but you also are getting the effect of when I need to push, when do I need to sit in the draft. Now with triathlon, that's not super important because you're really just racing yourself. But when you get to a more elite level, which is what I'm hoping to get to in my age group, is that if I know that someone's pushing on the bike however many watts, then I know that I need to make that up. And I hope that the strategy and the pacing and understanding the race dynamics as I start to improve more and more over the next couple years, that will benefit me in the long run. Because the worst thing to me is that you're just a workhorse and your capacity is great, but like athletes have athletic intuition and they know when to push, they would know when to conserve. So I think that that's a really underrated part of Zwift, and also having a coach that understands that athletic dynamic that many elite people have, not just in sport, but understanding that you don't just want to be a workhorse, you want to work hard but also be smart. So anyway, that's my spiel for that. Somehow still not talking about the taper week. Truly, the taper week's been boring. I've just been working, sleeping, and trying to not stress out too much because cortisol is bad. So anyway, this video probably could have been like 2 minutes of me just saying like, keep your stress down, keep your sleep up, and like go on a couple walks and bike rides. That's the taper week basically. So with that being said, stay tuned for the final episode of this series, episode 12, which will be maybe me, hopefully, fingers crossed, breaking the 5-hour mark in a 70.3 race. But don't jinx it, knock on wood, if you're watching this before Sunday, and we will see what happens. All right, cheers.